Of course, some people say, well, this is for women, this is for men, but this is not correct. The Prophet did both, and he said, pray as you saw me pray. So a woman may raise her hands to the level of her ears or to the level of the shoulders. This is perfectly permissible for a woman or a man. And so on. There are other variations which the Prophet did. And the prayer is one prayer, one for men and women. There's no special prayer for women and a special prayer for men. It is one and the same prayer. If there are variations that we observe, what we should do if we want to know about them is to go back to the authentic books of hadith, the traditions, Bukhari, Muslim, etc., and read. See how the Prophet's prayer was described. If we find practices which are not in these authentic books, then, and people are doing them, but other people are not, then we can be certain that those practices are incorrect. They may have developed, over time. People in laziness may do these things. For example, someone may raise their hands, instead of raising their hands this way saying Allahu Akbar, we might find them raising their hands this way saying Allahu Akbar. But this is not how the Prophet's prayer was described. Or we may find them just raising their hands saying Allahu Akbar, just flipping their hands and then clasping them. Just like this. This is not the way of the Prophet. May God's peace and blessing be upon him. So we have to determine what is in fact a variation of the Prophet in his practice of the prayer, which we may do, one or the other, or what is just cultural, ignorance of people, etc., or based on traditions which are not authentic. So having determined those, we can then pray as the Prophet prayed. The program is not long enough for me to actually go through each and every position in prayer, but suffice for me to say that we need to find correct information to know what is required of us in the prayer and to pray accordingly. We have another question which comes from Sharjah. Dawood writes, Dear Dr. Bilal, Assalamu alaikum. I'm a medical student and we perform post-mortem on dead bodies. When we open the cranium and remove the brains, we sometimes don't put them back when sewing the person back up. What is the Islamic judgment in this regard? Yours sincerely, Dawood. Brother Dawood, we as Muslims are enjoined not to cut up bodies, etc. So, to do so, there must be necessity. Where there's a crime, where there's suspicion of a crime, then this post-mortem is done, where we are checking. Now, having checked the body parts should be returned. And when we're doing these things, it should be done in a solemn manner. I know from friends who have been in the medical profession, gone through their studies, that there's a tendency amongst people, in order to make the issue of cutting up bodies, lighter, that we don't become revolted or, it becomes too obsessive for us or, oppressive, people make light of it, that it becomes something funny, or somebody may take an arm and throw it to the other and say, here's an arm, it becomes like a joke. No. This is something, as a Muslim, it's not permissible. We should treat the body that we are operating on, with complete solemnness. This is a creature of God. And we should handle that body properly, with the proper etiquettes. So, whatever has been removed should be returned wherever possible. If it is a circumstance where the organ, has fallen apart or it had to be dissected further, etc., and we're not able to put it back together, that's another situation. But as long as we're capable of putting back the parts where they were in the original, then we should do so. A question from Muhammad Parvez. Dr. Bilal, dear doctor, I hear that we must recite Qunut prayers in Witr. Should it be before Ruku' or after Tashahud? Yours in Islam, Muhammad Parvez. I would first like to point out that the recitation of Qunut is not obligatory. So, the first issue, we must recite. I would say to you, we do not have to recite. It is something which the Prophet did on some occasions and did not do on other occasions. So actually, in keeping with the Sunnah, it would be better for us not to do it all the time, but to recite the Qunut sometimes and not at other times. And of course, we have two basic prayers of Qunut, which are both authentically narrated to us from the Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him. So whether we do one or the other is up to us. We may also do both, one sometimes, the other at other times. Whether this is done before going into Ruku' or whether it's done coming out of Ruku', both were done by Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him. So there is an option here. It's mentioned here after Tashahud. Well, it's not after Tashahud, but either before Ruku' or after coming out of Ruku', the bowing. These are two options which are available to us. Important thing to keep in mind, dear viewer, that the Witr prayer, which is the prayer of the night, making whatever voluntary prayers we do an odd grouping, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, etc. This Witr prayer is best done in the latter part of the night, before the dawn, the last third of the night. We are tending to do it immediately after Isha. But the best time to do it, the time for which it was originally designed, was the latter part of the night. We get up when everybody else is sleeping, wake up our families to join us, and we pray at that time. And this prayer is one of the most powerful of prayers. Let us try our best to take the full benefit, not only being concerned with the actual ritual of whether we do Qunut or we don't do Qunut, or it's before Ruku' or after Ruku', as these are all variations, but to do it with the correct spirit at the correct time. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of In the Light of Islam. I invite you to write to us, Dr. Bilal Phillips, Sharjah TV, P.O. Box 111, Sharjah. And I hope to see you in future segments. I hope that what we're doing for you is of benefit. We'd like to hear your words of encouragement, your words of advice, as well as your questions. And with that, dear viewers, I bid you all farewell. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.